Naruto is a series full of memorable and iconic villains. Madara remains one of the most popular villains in manga, and the Akatsuki remains probably the most iconic villain group in manga. However, one of the most memorable was introduced within the early chapters of the series and remained around through the entire manga. I'm of course talking about Orochimaru, one of the three legendary Sannin and the central antagonist for much of the manga. As you can probably see from the title, this video is not going over any specific versus matchup with Orochimaru, and instead I'm just going to be covering Orochimaru's strength in general throughout the series. I wanted to do this as Orochimaru has a lot of information about him that isn't necessarily relevant to every matchup, but I think it's interesting for his scaling regardless, and this will let me extensively cover Orochimaru, as I won't have to cover another character in this video. I'm going to make my own takes very clear, but I'll also bring up other potential views of certain things to be as comprehensive as possible. Orochimaru is one of the three legendary Sannin, and this alone can tell us a lot about his overall strength. The second data book straight up says the Sannin are the strongest ninja, and upon Jiraiya's introduction, Ebisu says you need the help of a Sannin to kill Orochimaru. Being a Sannin should also mean the scaling of Jiraiya and Tsunade and their base forms should also apply to Orochimaru, as the trio is stated to be relative on numerous occasions. I say this applies to the base form of the trio and wouldn't include things like Jiraiya's Sage Mode, as these statements are made hundreds of chapters before Sage Mode makes an appearance. It's questionable if Kishimoto even had Sage Mode as a concept in mind at this point in the series, but that is of course hard to confirm. Regardless of if Kishimoto planned for Jiraiya to have Sage Mode all along, the statement page should only apply to information we, the audience, have. Not only do the databook straight up tell us that they only cover up to certain portions of the manga, but from a storytelling perspective, it wouldn't make sense to tell us these characters are equal if it's referring to a form we don't know about. All that said, I do think Orochimaru is slightly stronger than Jiraiya without Sage Mode. This may seem contradictory to some as they're stated equal, so how is one stronger? Well, equal in context like this doesn't mean exactly the same, it would more so denote being comparable. This obviously doesn't mean equal in a mathematical sense, like when you say 1 is equal to 1. Jiraiya and Orochimaru are different people, and have vastly different movesets. There's no way you can say they are truly equivalent in anything, so one being stronger is fine so long as it isn't by a massive amount. Now, to actually explain why I think Orochimaru is stronger, during the fight between the three Sannin, Orochimaru states, "Even with us both having handicaps, it's no contest," obviously implying that without the handicaps, there would be no contest between the two. Orochimaru is likely basing this statement on his knowledge of Jiraiya in the past, before he left the village due to them not fighting since then. Time has passed since then, and Jiraiya did train, but the biggest thing he gained was his Sage Mode, and we're discussing his base. On top of this, Orochimaru also trained due to his obsession with developing jutsu and is willing to do anything to achieve it, such as the various messed up experiments we see him do. Orochimaru likely spent all his time since leaving the village researching and developing new jutsu. Jiraiya in this time was also researching, but it was a little less productive, let's say. If anyone's base grew more in this time, it would be Orochimaru, so him stating this off past knowledge would only help his case. Thus, it's safe to say Orochimaru is relative to base Jiraiya and Tsunade, while being slightly superior. Now to go over some actual fights Orochimaru has. His first major fight in the series is also one of his most impressive. Orochimaru vs Hiruzen is the first fight in the manga where we see what are explicitly stated as two Kage level combatants go at it. Before I get into the implications this has for Orochimaru, I need to address some misconceptions about this fight. First off, I want to debunk the ridiculous idea that Hiruzen was holding back against Orochimaru the whole time, and absolutely destroyed him when he finally went all out. Now, Hiruzen holding back for most of the fight isn't the part I take issue with, as Imna implies Hiruzen is off during the fight, and Hiruzen doesn't resolve himself to kill Orochimaru until the very end of the fight. My issue is that even after Hiruzen goes all out, Orochimaru is still keeping up with him, and it is likely Orochimaru is holding back in some regards himself. First, to address the idea that Hiruzen overwhelmed Orochimaru, we see Orochimaru blocking numerous blows from Hiruzen, and only gets grabbed by Hiruzen when having to defend against Imna from a separate direction. Nothing about the interaction implies Hiruzen outclassed Orochimaru, and I don't really know how this misconception started. Now to move on to Orochimaru potentially holding back himself. For the majority of the encounter, Orochimaru is sitting back and letting the Edo Tensei Hokage do the fighting for him. In fact, after summoning them, Orochimaru never goes on the offensive himself, and only blocks attacks from Hiruzen that manage to reach him. The second data book goes so far as to call the fight a boring pastime for Orochimaru, implying he isn't taking the fight all too seriously. On top of everything previously stated, it's very likely that Hiruzen had a resolve amp at the end of the fight. We know from numerous statements and examples that a shinobi's mental state can influence their strength quite drastically. As early as chapter 21, Haku explains to Naruto that you can become as strong as you must be when protecting something precious, and Hiruzen says something very similar in his fight with Orochimaru. We also have databook statements that Naruto gets stronger from his resolve around becoming Hokage. In the Orochimaru fight, Hiruzen is not only protecting Konoha, but also finally resolving himself to kill Orochimaru at the end. We even get 2 separate flashbacks mid-fight to show him finally committing to killing Orochimaru, and then to show his love and desire to protect Konoha. Hiruzen is literally tearing up before finally clashing with Orochimaru, so taking everything previously stated into account, it'd be pretty strange to claim he isn't mentally amped here. Orochimaru keeping up with an amped Hiruzen actually coincides with multiple statements that imply he is superior in strength, such as the first data book stating, "He is powerful enough to clearly state he is superior to the third Hokage," in reference to Orochimaru. Whilst I see Orochimaru as being stronger than Hiruzen, I did say I would bring up alternate views. One such alternate view is that the two are just equals due to a statement from the fanbook. Due to the wording, however, that the two shinobi were equally matched, I tend to think this means they were equal in the fight that took place, where they were both holding back, and not equals in a general sense. Even at worst for Orochimaru, this just means he's an equal to Hiruzen, meaning you can still scale Orochimaru's strength off of him. Even if he's only equal to Hiruzen, this would still be extremely impressive, with Hiruzen being stated to be the strongest of the 5 Kage by Kabuto. This statement is supported by the fact that the Hokage is meant to be the strongest shinobi in Konoha, and Konoha is stated to be the strongest village at the time of Part 1. The Kage of other villages are implied to, and in some cases stated to also be the strongest of their respective villages. This means Hiruzen, and by extension Orochimaru, should be above anyone officially part of the 5 villages at the time of Part 1. Who exactly this includes is where we have some caveats to all of this. For example, this would include the 4th Raikage, but all of the 4th Raikage's scaling comes from after the time skip. In this time, he was probably training, considering we literally see him working out when he's introduced. It's also stated by Inoki that the Raikage has been seeking power since the 3rd war. Thus, Hiruzen is stronger than the Raikage in Part 1, but there's no way to say this applies to the Raikage in Part 2. A part of this that is even more vague is that we don't know if the Mizukage was Yagura or Mei during this time. We have almost no information on Yagura, so pinpointing when he died and when Mei took over is impossible. If the statement does include Yagura, that would be impressive, as Yagura is a perfect Jinchuriki of the 3 tails. So Hiruzen and Orochimaru would be outclassing somebody with a full Biju transformation. One person we know this should include is Rasa. Even though Rasa was dead when the statement was made, the statement is saying Orochimaru fought Hiruzen knowing he already had the reputation of being the strongest of the 5 Kage. This means Hiruzen had this reputation before the fight, and Rasa died close to the fight as Orochimaru is the one who killed him and began to impersonate him. Rasa is someone who would subdue a rampaging Shikaku on the regular with his gold dust. Even if he just slowed down Shikaku massively using his gold dust, and Shikaku got tired or something, he would still need some comparable power to pull this off. Biju have massive area of effect attacks using their Biju bombs, so if Rasa had no physical power that could keep up with Shikaku, he would just be blown away. It may seem insane to some people for Orochimaru to scale to Biju, but this is actually super consistent. It's heavily implied that Orochimaru, when healthy, is stronger than his main summon, Manda. Kabuto says Orochimaru summoning Manda while still suffering from the loss of his arms is risky due to the fact that Manda will betray Orochimaru if he learns he cannot use jutsu anymore. This would imply that Orochimaru is Manda's master due to his sheer power, and Manda won't listen to somebody who's beneath him. Manda has been shown to be at least comparable to Gamabunta, if not superior, as Tsunade had to save Gamabunta during the fight. Gamabunta the arc prior was able to briefly keep up with Shikaku even after Gaara fully fell asleep and Shikaku was at his full power. Orochimaru is also stated to be the most powerful of Leaf Village enemies, and this statement is likely referring to around the time of Konoha Crush, meaning this would include Shikaku and possibly Rasa, although that's more up in the air due to him being dead. I think by now you're getting a pretty good idea of where Orochimaru stands in terms of power. He should be beyond any normal shinobi who are alive in Part 1, and some of the Biju. When I say normal shinobi, the main group I'm excluding is any rogue ninja like the Akatsuki. Whilst Orochimaru is likely stronger than much of the Akatsuki, he admits inferiority to Itachi, and I think he would lose quite badly to Pain and Obito. Thus far, all I have really covered is Orochimaru's power in an overall sense. So now I want to go over his various abilities. Orochimaru has an insane array of jutsu, especially for the point in the series he's introduced. After all, Orochimaru's whole thing is wanting to develop as many jutsu as possible, and he will pursue this by any means necessary. Just as an example of how deep Orochimaru's tool bag is, the 4th data book says Orochimaru has all 7 chakra natures. We only actually see Orochimaru use wind style and fire style. It's safe to say that we have never even seen close to the full extent of Orochimaru's arsenal. Now to get to what we actually have seen. Summoning is basically the Sannin's defining technique, and Orochimaru is no exception. Orochimaru can summon various snakes like Manda, nameless giant snakes, and a wide array of smaller snakes. These smaller snakes can extend almost like limbs, and are strong enough to stop attacks from Hiruzen's own summon, Enma. Orochimaru can also summon Rashomon gates, which can be used for blocking incoming attacks. The most we've seen him summon is 3, and he was nerfed here due to Reaper Death Seal, but we've never seen him summon any more. Orochimaru also has regeneration that makes his survivability pretty insane. During his fight with Four-Tails Naruto, he gets cut clean in half and is able to pull himself back together with snakes that extend out of him. To add to the survivability, Orochimaru is able to enter his true form, which is the white snake he used against Sasuke. While in this form, if you attempt to kill him and expose his blood to the air, the blood will turn into a toxin that paralyzes you. On top of this, Orochimaru can initiate the ritual that allows him to take over somebody else's body whilst in this form. Sasuke only escaped this jutsu due to the Sharingan, despite being stronger than the sick Orochimaru he fought. Orochimaru's white snake form is actually what allows him to use his strongest technique, which is the 8-headed serpent. Seen only once in his brief encounter with Itachi, this massive hydra is stated not only to be larger than Manda, but Orochimaru's most powerful jutsu. Outside of these statements, however, the hydra doesn't actually do anything other than lose very badly to Itachi. This isn't really a bad look, as Itachi is confirmed stronger than Orochimaru already, and he used the insanely overpowered Totsuka blade to seal the hydra away. All this really means is the hydra is just vaguely stronger than Orochimaru normally, as we can't really confirm anything beyond that. Now I'm going to do a lightning round of sorts, just to briefly cover some other miscellaneous things about Orochimaru. I'm not going to go in depth like I did for anything previously for the sake of time. These are some things we don't know as much about, or are just less important. Orochimaru has some genjutsu. In the Forest of Death, he afflicts Sakura and Sasuke with visions of death, and does a similar thing to Kakashi. He seems to never even attempt this on anyone else, however. The Kusanagi blade is a katana Orochimaru can pull out of his mouth. It can extend well beyond its normal length, and he can use it to attack directly from his mouth. Moving on, Orochimaru is able to use sealing jutsu. This is seen when he places the 5-pronged seal on Naruto in the Forest of Death. We don't know anything about his sealing capabilities beyond this, but I thought it was worth a mention. I hope you all enjoyed this breakdown of Orochimaru and the improved audio quality. If you did enjoy the video, I would appreciate you liking and subscribing. I'm going to continue putting out videos weekly, so if you want to, drop any video requests in the comments you would like to see. I may make a video on it in the near future.